Hey guys, tonight we climb aboard a creaky, sea-worn British naval vessel, bobbing somewhere in the Atlantic, soaked in salt spray and regret. You're already queasy from the rocking. The wood groans beneath your feet, the sails flap lazily above, and every breath you take tastes like damp rope and stale fish. It's 1740-something, and you're here to do your duty, which mostly involves not dying. You probably won't survive this voyage. To be fair, most sailors don't. Scurvy is gnawing through crews like a polite but determined termite, and nobody seems to know how to stop it. You, dear listener, are a fresh recruit, one among hundreds, stuffed into a wooden warship that smells like fermented socks and human ambition. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. It's always fun seeing who else is drifting off in the middle of the night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing at the edge of the main deck, squinting into the overcast sky. The waves slap the hull with a rhythm that will soon become the beat of your life. Around you, Hershless men hull ropes and curse under their breath. Someone is vomiting behind a cannon. This is your new home, and it is aggressively moist. The Royal Navy has a reputation for discipline, gunpowder, and empire building. But none of that matters much when your gums are bleeding and your legs feel like pudding. And here's the real kicker. Nobody on board really understands what's causing it. They just know it strikes sometime after you run out of anything green, and once it starts, there's no polite way to die. You shuffle below deck to your hammock, which is strung like a sad piece of laundry between two beams. The air down here is a stew of sweat, mold, and despair. You'll be sleeping next to 40 other sailors, all gently swaying, snoring, and possibly rotting. It's basically the worst hostel in maritime history. Don't drink the water, someone tells you. Stick to beer. And so, beer becomes your lifeline. It's warm, flat, and tastes vaguely like rusty nails. But it's safer than the barrels of water, which tend to grow mysterious films after a few days at sea. Beer doesn't spoil as fast, and besides, it makes the hardtack easier to choke down. That's the dry, rock-like biscuit that will make up most of your meals. It has all the charm of drywall, and sometimes includes bonus weevils. Historians still argue whether the average sailor consumed more alcohol than calories, or if the booze was simply the only thing stopping them from dying of dysentery. Either way, you learn to love your daily ration of beer, because it numbs your teeth and gives you something to toast when your friend's toe falls off. There's a curious kind of camaraderie among the crew. You swap stories, sing off-key sea shanties, and occasionally spot flying fish that make everyone giggle like they've seen a magician. But underneath the singing, there's a creeping dread. Someone is always limping a little more than yesterday. Someone else hasn't eaten in 2 days. You hear the term land scurvy whispered like it's a curse, because the sickness doesn't just rot your body. It makes your mind go soft, too.
You find out the hard way that the beer ration doesn't prevent this. One sailor, a cheerful man from Portsmouth named Bill, starts bleeding from his gums. Within a week, he can't get out of his hammock. A month later, he's gone. No funeral, just a quiet splash and a prayer. The ocean doesn't keep records. The officers don't talk about it much. They still hand out beer like it's a miracle cure, claiming it fortifies the blood or wards off bad humors. There's a doctor on board, a surgeon, technically, who carries a kit filled with saws, syringes, and good intentions. But his cures usually involve removing the affected limb or suggesting you try vinegar. You smile and nod, then drink more beer. Meanwhile, your skin starts to feel strange. Bruises appear like watercolor blotches, and your legs ache as though you've been hiking uphill for a week. You hear tales of old sailors who tried chewing rope for nutrition or licking the sides of barrels in the hope of finding some forgotten vitamin. The odd thing is, there's no citrus anywhere. You remember oranges, vaguely, from your time on land, but they're considered frivolous now. Too expensive, too delicate. Lemons? Limes? Those are for fancy people, or for squeezing over fish in inns you'll never see again. On this ship, you get salt meat, hardtack, and beer. That's it. And maybe, if you're lucky, a spoonful of pea soup that hasn't fully fermented into a life form. Still, you carry on. You haul ropes, scrub decks, and try not to trip over unconscious crewmates. You learn to whistle with missing teeth. You grow fond of the groaning wood and the distant cry of gulls. Sleep comes in salty fits, and your dreams are filled with land, real bread, and the sharp snap of a fresh lemon. But for now, there is only beer. Flat, warm, and slightly cloudy. It waits for you in a battered tin mug. You drink deeply, hoping, perhaps foolishly, that it's keeping you alive. You wake to the sound of groaning timber and sloshing bilge water, with the distinct aftertaste of stale beer on your tongue. Your mouth feels like someone stuffed it with burlap and old socks. Welcome to another day aboard His Majesty's finest driftwood death trap. The breakfast menu has not changed since yesterday, nor will it tomorrow. Salted beef so tough it doubles as shoe leather, a biscuit hard enough to dent cannonballs, and, you guessed it, a lukewarm ration of beer. You cradle the metal mug like it's holy. This is your hydration, your medicine, your morning pick-me-up. You even imagine it has vitamins. It does not. Mainstream history likes to romanticize the age of sail with billowing sails, daring sea battles, and heroic officers with perfect posture. What they rarely dwell on is the food, or more accurately, the complete lack of anything resembling fresh, edible produce. Take that biscuit in your hand. It's called hardtack, and it has the texture of compressed regret. It's baked until all moisture is gone, which helps it last for years in storage. Unfortunately, this also renders it virtually inedible without soaking. Some sailors dunk it in beer. Others just gnaw through it like desperate beavers. Salted meat, on the other hand, is a science experiment. It's beef, or was once, packed in barrels with obscene amounts of salt. The result is fibrous, chewy, and so briny it makes your tongue wince. Sometimes the meat comes with bonus maggots, but after the first few weeks at sea, nobody really minds. Protein is protein. Historians still argue whether this diet was intentionally cruel or simply a case of the Navy doing its best with what it had. There were attempts to improve it. Occasionally, a ship might get dried peas, pickled cabbage, or even molasses. But the logistics of storing perishables in wooden barrels on a rocking ship? Not ideal. Refrigeration, sadly, hasn't been invented yet. You chew your breakfast slowly, eyes half closed, trying not to think about scurvy. But it's hard to ignore the signs. The older sailors are missing teeth. Their eyes have a haunted look. One guy's legs are so swollen they resemble overstuffed sausages. And that one deckhand, Jack, was it? He sneezed blood yesterday and nobody's seen him since. You begin to notice small changes in your own body. Your gums bleed when you eat. Your joints ache when you climb the rigging. You feel tired in a way that no amount of beer can fix. And yet, beer is still the star of the show. You see, drinking water on a ship is a gamble. Stored in wooden casks for weeks or months, it tends to develop a unique flavor profile, somewhere between swamp and disease. Bacteria thrive in it. The water gets cloudy, sometimes slimy. You quickly learn to hold your nose or just stick to beer. Why beer? Because the brewing process, particularly the boiling, kills many of the harmful microbes. Plus, it has alcohol, which, in the minds of 18th century sailors, is basically medicine. Weak ale is standard issue, brewed specifically for the Navy. It's lower in alcohol than tavern fare, but still enough to lift the spirits, or at least blur the edges of reality. Sometimes it's even rashed out in generous portions, a full gallon per sailor per day. That's not a typo, a gallon. You can practically swim in it. Of course, after a few weeks, the beer goes stale too. Flat, sour, and often full of sediment. Still, you drink it.
There's a kind of ritual to it. Wake up, beer. Breakfast, beer. Midday heat, beer. Evening lull, beer. If you're lucky, you can swap an extra biscuit for someone's leftover pint. The crew begins to resemble a sleepy, half-drunk brotherhood of wobbling shadows. You overhear an officer say the beer keeps men calm and orderly. He's not wrong. Tipsy sailors complain less. And when you're working 18-hour days, hauling ropes, patching sails, and climbing slick masts during squalls, a little buzz takes the edge off. Still, you wonder, is this really keeping us alive? A few men whisper about strange remedies. Back home, my gran swore by gooseberries, one says. Another claims carrots can cure anything. One sailor insists lemons are magic, but nobody's seen one in months. Oranges? Exotic nonsense. You laugh with them, even as you feel a tooth shift in your mouth. Below deck, the ship's medical chest contains things like laudanum, mustard plasters, and a mysterious powder called Jesuit's bark. The ship's surgeon gives out vinegar like it's holy water. He suggests you walk more to clear your blood. You live on a boat the size of a whale's skeleton. There's nowhere to walk. And yet the beer flows. Not from taps, mind you, but from wooden casks rolled out of storage by groaning quartermasters. You watch them dip ladles into the murky depths and pour it into mugs, sloshing and fizzing like a potion. You drink deeply and tell yourself it's working. One evening, during a rare quiet moment, you stand at the rail and gaze at the endless ocean. The sun sets in bands of copper and gold. The ship creaks. Gulls wheel overhead, and for a second, you could almost believe this is paradise. Then someone coughs up something wet behind you, and the spell breaks. You sip your beer and try to ignore the metallic taste in your mouth. Another sailor jokes his toenails are turning purple. You laugh, then check your own toes. It's fine. Probably. You're halfway through your mug of beer when the ship's bell clanks 3 times, just enough to jolt you from your daze. A shout echoes across the deck, "All hands!" That can mean anything from a torn sail to an enemy sighting, or, more likely, a barrel of salted meat has finally exploded in protest. You brace yourself and follow the others up the ladder, gripping the damped rungs like they owe you money. Once on deck, the sky opens up above you, sullen and gray, with low clouds that look like they're thinking of drowning you. The wind has picked up, sails snap angrily. You can smell the rain before it hits, and sure enough, within minutes, you're drenched in seawater, beer breath, and sheer panic. Rain, of course, is a mixed blessing at sea. It freshens the air, refills the barrels, if you're clever, and washes away the scent of decaying hope that clings to every surface.
but it also turns the deck into a slippery death trap and makes it impossible to light anything. The fire used for cooking? Extinguished. That faint comfort of a hot something? Gone. So you fall back on the usual: cold food and warm beer. Still, this storm isn't the worst part. The worst part is how, in the middle of tying off a line with fingers so pruny they resemble antique raisins, you notice old Tom is limping. Again. Tom, the oldest man aboard and still somehow the loudest snorer, is having trouble standing. His calves look bruised. His teeth, what's left of them, wobble like loose nails. When he spits on the deck, it's pinkish. Scurvy.
The word is never shouted. It just hovers, whispered between bites of salt pork or sips of bitter ale. Nobody wants to admit it out loud. It's like saying iceberg on a ship full of optimists. Historians still argue whether the officers truly understood what scurvy was, or if they simply categorized it alongside other charming seafaring ailments like seed lung or brain fog. Some believed it was caused by damp humors. Others thought it was a curse, or perhaps bad wind trapped in the lower decks. You, of course, don't have any theories. You're too busy trying to finish your ration before your teeth decide to jump ship. But one day, during a rare sunlit afternoon, the purser rolls out a cask that smells different. Not beer, not vinegar. Something sharper, fresher. Lime juice, he says. You stare at it like he's just pulled the Holy Grail out of the hold. It's a small ration, doled out carefully. The officers are experimenting. Whispers from another ship spoke of a captain trying citrus. Supposedly his crew didn't rot. Now nobody dares hope, but everyone drinks. The lime juice is sour enough to make your eyelids twitch. But it tastes like life, like trees, like land. You can almost remember the feel of grass under your feet. Someone jokes that it's a pirate repellent. Another says it'll turn your blood green. Nobody cares. You all line up for your spoonfuls like schoolboys.
For a while, spirits lift. Even the beer tastes better now that it's not the only beverage. You start to think, maybe this is it. Maybe citrus is the answer. You and your mates begin to feel, if not healthy, then at least not actively decomposing. A few bruises fade. Gums stop bleeding. Tom even sings a few bars of an old sea shanty that involves a goat and a barrel. But the supplies are limited. The limes run out before the journey ends. Soon the bleeding gums return. Men grow slow again. Someone swears their hair is falling out in clumps, though nobody has the energy to confirm it. You begin to suspect that the Navy doesn't actually know what it's doing. For all their cannons and flags and medals, the officers don't seem to have a plan beyond don't die too fast. Beer remains the standard. It's easy to store, relatively safe to drink, and nobody's going to riot over it. But it doesn't solve the problem. It never did. One night, while lying in your hammock and listening to the creak of the ship's timbers and the quiet murmurs of sleeping men, you begin to wonder what the land smells like. Earth. Fresh bread. Fruit? You dream of oranges the size of your fist and lemons glistening in bowls. In the dream, you're eating them one after another, your mouth puckering and your teeth whole again. Your legs are strong. You're laughing. There's sunlight. When you wake, the air is wet and the beer is warm, and someone's groaning across the room. Still, you drink, because until someone figures it out, until a captain somewhere demands crates of citrus and makes it law, you've only got beer and biscuits, and a prayer that the voyage ends before you do.
You've been at sea so long, you're starting to forget what standing still feels like. The world rocks gently under your boots, even when you're asleep. In dreams, you're always swaying, cradled by the endless rise and fall of the ocean. On some days, that feels almost peaceful. On others, it feels like you're slowly being digested by the sea. Today, though, brings a surprise. A sail has been spotted on the horizon. There's no panic. This isn't a naval skirmish or a pirate chase, at least not yet. The officers squint through telescopes, comparing flags and muttering about trade routes. Turns out it's a merchant vessel limping along, her sails frayed and her movements sluggish. You and a few other sailors gather along the rails, straining your eyes. She looks like she's been through worse weather than you. Soon, there's shouting, signal flags, and a slow maneuver as both ships inch closer. The other vessel is Dutch, or possibly Danish, depending on whom you ask, and her crew looks about as battered and tired as yours. What follows is an old maritime tradition, the exchange of necessaries. Goods, gossip, and, if you're lucky, fruit. By some miracle, they've got citrus. Crates of it. Oranges, lemons, even a few pale-looking grapefruits, which you'd swear were invented by wizards. The bartering begins immediately. Your officers offer up spare tools, dried beans, and even beer in exchange. You have handed over your boots and a third of your dignity for just one orange. But fortunately, it doesn't come to that.
You're handed half a lemon and a whole sun-warmed orange. The lemon is sliced in quarters, served like treasure. You bite in and your face puckers so violently it earns a laugh from your mates. But you don't care. You chew the pulp like a starving animal. The juice stings your cracked lips, but your body practically sings with relief. Historians still argue whether these impromptu exchanges, chance meetings at sea, did more for naval nutrition than the actual medical advice of the time. After all, official policy was slow to change. Captain Cook's success with sauerkraut and citrus was still regarded as quirky rather than revolutionary. The British Admiralty, never in a rush to admit new science, kept clinging to old methods: beer, vinegar, and blind optimism. Still, sailors knew. You knew. That single orange tasted like hope. Of course, it couldn't last. The citrus was divided quickly and rationed down to peels. Some of the men boiled the rinds to flavor their water. Others dried the zest and ate it like jerky. One enterprising soul tried to brew it into a kind of citrus beer. It was reportedly undrinkable, but everyone pretended it was great. For morale. Your ship pulls away from the Dutch vessel after half a day, the sails creaking as you return to your prescribed course. But the memory of that orange stays with you. For a few days, the crew is livelier. Men sing while swabbing the deck. Someone even carves a smiling sun onto a barrel. Then Tom dies. It's not sudden. It's not dramatic. He just stops waking up one morning, his body curled in the same corner of the hammock where he snored for years. The ship's bell tolls twice, and that's that. His belongings, what little he had, are passed along. His hammock is weighted and dropped into the sea. The ceremony is quick. You say a few words, more out of habit than belief. Everyone looks older afterward. Even the boys who came aboard fresh-faced are starting to develop that sun-dried look, skin like cracked leather, hair stiff with salt.
But still, there's beer. The quartermaster's now watering it down, partly due to dwindling supplies, partly to keep men from getting too merry. You don't mind. It's more ritual than refreshment now, something to hold in your hands while staring out at the horizon, wondering where in the world you are. Speaking of which, nobody seems entirely sure. The charts are vague, the stars have been obscured for days. You overhear the navigator arguing with an officer. "We're close to the tropics," one says. "No, too far south," another argues. You'd offer your opinion, but your qualifications begin and end with tying knots and chewing citrus peels like they owe you money. Still, the mood shifts. You can feel it in your bones, and not just because they ache in ways they didn't last month. There's something about nearing land, even unseen, that changes men. They speak more of home, of wives, of pubs, of bread. One sailor says he dreams of a pie so vividly he swears he can smell it when he wakes. You wonder if he's got scurvy-induced hallucinations, but honestly, I'd love to dream of pie too. That evening the clouds part just enough to let the moon through. It bathes the deck in silver light, softening the harsh lines and giving the ship a dreamlike glow. You sip your beer, now more water than alcohol, and think, it's not so bad. At least, not right now. And then you remember the lemon. How it bit your tongue, how it made your gums stop bleeding, if only for a while. You wonder why nobody made citrus standard, why we all had to learn this the hard way, why science on land moved faster than it ever did at sea. It's almost funny in a tragic sort of way. The cure was always there, growing quietly on trees, sunlit and simple. And yet for centuries, men drank beer and died slowly under painted skies.
You wake to a soft thudding, wooden soles on damp planks, rhythmic and oddly soothing. For a moment you think it's rain again, but then you open your eyes and realize it's just the ship's cook stomping across the deck above your hammock. Breakfast, if you could call it that, is being prepared. You shuffle upright, joints cracking like old rigging. Breakfast is always the same. Hardtack and a sliver of cheese that looks and smells like it was negotiated out of a medieval painting. There's beer too. Flat, tepid, and slightly metallic. But it's calories, and that's what matters. And yet, here's something unexpected. You feel a little steady today. You're not sure why. The sea is relatively calm. The sun is out. You haven't tripped over a rat or coughed up blood in at least 2 days. That's basically what passes for a win on this ship. Then the surgeon's mate stumbles into view. He's not a surgeon in the modern sense, mind you. He's the ship's cutter, trained mostly in bone saws, leeches, and screaming. His apron is perpetually stained, and his breath smells of things better left unnamed. But today, he's bustling with something resembling excitement. He hears him mutter to a midshipman about a new ration schedule and citric reserves. That last bit makes your ears perk up. Limes. More of them. Apparently, the Admiralty has sent new orders via another passing ship. From now on, each sailor is to receive a daily dose of lemon or lime juice, mixed with a dash of rum or brandy if available, and administered under supervision. It's a trial, not yet policy, but someone high up the chain has finally taken notice of the data coming in from far-flung voyages.
You line up with the others, this time with a bit more eagerness. The lime juice is still tart, but now it's mixed with a little molasses too, making it taste almost like a delicacy. The purser even winks as he hands it to you. "Keeps the teeth in your head," he says. Historians still argue whether it was the growing pile of medical journals, the increased merchant deaths, or the practical experiences of long-haul captains that finally forced the Navy to take scurvy seriously. What's certain is that the sailors knew long before the doctors did. You didn't need a degree to understand that your gums stopped bleeding when you drank citrus. You sip it slowly, savoring it. It hits the back of your throat and settles in your belly like warmth. A few of the lads raise their tin cups in mock toasts. To not dying this week, one says. To chewing solid food, another offers. You raise yours with them. After the dose, there's a bit of free time before your duties resume. You sit on a crate near the aft and stare at the horizon. It's flat and endless, as always, but now there's a whisper of something new in the air. Not land, but change. You can almost feel it in your bones, humming beneath the usual ache. The ship's dog trots by, tongue lolling out, tail wagging. You scratch its ears. He doesn't have scurvy. Lucky beast gets scraps from the officer's table. Probably more vitamin C than the entire lower deck combined. Still, you can't help but hope this experiment sticks. That someone, somewhere, realizes that death by bleeding gums is both tragic and thoroughly preventable. The very idea of losing teeth and strength and then your life because no one thought to pack a few barrels of fruit is enough to make a man curse softly into his beer.
Speaking of which, the beer ration is shrinking. Not because they care about your health, but because citrus is now the showstopper. There's a subtle shift underway. Where once beer was handed out like holy water, now it's the lime dose that gets guarded like treasure. Some even say the lime barrel has a padlock. Still, the beer hasn't vanished. It's just changed roles. Less a tonic, more a tradition. A way to unwind at the end of the day, to pass the time, to forget that you've been sleeping beside the same 4 men for 120 nights. Later that afternoon, during sail repair duty, one of the midshipmen sidles up beside you and mutters, "They're calling us limeys now." He doesn't seem upset about it. In fact, there's something proud in the way he says it, like a badge earned, not given. You nod. You've been called worse. The nickname sticks. In time, it spreads. The British Navy becomes synonymous with citrus, their sailors mocked and admired for surviving where others wilted. The irony isn't lost on you. The cure had been around for centuries. Arabs, Indians, and Polynesians knew of citrus's healing properties long before the English caught on. But history has a way of painting the slowest learners as pioneers. You chew the last corner of your hardtack and watch a gull wheel overhead. Land must be somewhere nearby. The bird doesn't look like it wants to live on a ship. Evening descends slowly, in layers of gold and purple. The sun sinks behind waves, and someone lights a lantern near the mast. The shadows lengthen, and voices quiet. You cradle your beer cup in your hands, still faintly sticky from the citrus dose. The crew gathers for supper, salt pork again. One lad swore he saw a sprig of parsley on the officer's table, and the rest of you pretend he's lying just so you don't cry. Still, you're alive. You dream of fruit again that night, vivid, bright fruit on tall trees, fields full of lemons, orange growths stretching to the horizon. And you're not alone. One by one, the crew is dreaming the same dream.
The wind shifts overnight. You notice it first by the way your hammock sways, not with the familiar rhythm of open sea, but in sharp, purposeful tugs. When you climb topside, the air smells different. Not salty and stale like it has for weeks, but earthy, damp, full of unseen leaves and something that might be cinnamon? The lookout confirms it within an hour. Land. It's not England, not home, not anywhere familiar. A low coastline emerges from the mist, lined with jungle that seems to shimmer green even from this distance. The trees crowd the edge of the world like they're trying to keep secrets from the ocean. Birds wheel above the canopy in tight, irritable spirals. The crew stands in silence for a moment, staring. You haven't seen land in over a month. Some of the younger sailors actually gasp.
Your captain, never one for unnecessary sentiment, starts barking orders, and just like that, the spell breaks. Sails are adjusted, anchors prepared. The word is passed down. You'll be going ashore in shifts. There's talk of trading with the locals. The first mate mentions exotic fruits, mangoes, guavas, limes thicker than your fist. Someone mentions monkeys. Another mentions disease. The cook mentions rum twice, and no one argues. Later that afternoon, it's your turn to step into one of the long boats. You lower slowly toward the surf, stomach fluttering. It's not fear, it's anticipation. Your boots hit the sand and sink a half-inch in. For the first time in weeks, the earth does not move beneath you. You look around. The beach is fringed with palms, and beyond them, trees you can't name. The air is thick and warm, full of insect hum and bird song. Your shirt sticks to your back instantly. But it's alive. The world is alive here in a way the ship never is.
Locals approach cautiously from the tree line, and the officers greet them with a mix of smiles, gestures, and universal offerings. Knives, cloth, trinkets. In return, baskets appear. Fruit, mostly. Some you recognize, some you definitely don't. One has scales, another smells like a foot. You're handed something that looks like a swollen green plum. You bite in. It's sour, but not just sour, electric. Your whole mouth floods with saliva. A tingle shoots down your jaw and into your neck. Your gums twinge, your tongue swears at you, but you eat the whole thing anyway. Historians still debate which specific island the Navy visited during these voyages. The records were often vague, and maps at the time were more wishful thinking than science. Some argue this was the Caribbean. Others say it was a Pacific island. Still others claim this is a composite memory pulled from dozens of landfalls. But for you, right now, it's the land of fruit. The crew gathers in a loose, informal market. A few brave souls try roasted meats that might be lizard. Others chase chickens for sport. Someone attempts to explain cricket to a group of laughing children. Another sailor trades a belt buckle for an entire bunch of bananas. You slip away briefly, just to be alone. The jungle edge pulls at you. You walk a few feet in, where the light grows mossy and dim. The ground is soft. You see vines thick as your wrist. The air tastes like rain. You spot a tree covered in strange yellow pods. One of the locals sees you staring and walks over, machete in hand. He slices one open and hands it to you. Inside, rows of slippery seeds covered in white pulp. Cacao, he says. You nod as if you understand. You don't, but you suck on a seed anyway. It tastes like sour melon mixed with soap.
You smile politely. As the sun dips low, the crew is rounded up. Everyone returns to the boats weighed down with fruit, laughter, and at least one monkey that someone has smuggled aboard in a sack. The captain won't be thrilled. Back on the ship, the cook gets to work. Tonight's meal is supplemented with roasted plantains and a papaya salad that looks like something from a dream. The officers dine better, of course. Rumor has it they're having lobster and something called breadfruit. You settle for seconds of the bananas. They're soft, overripe, and perfect. Later that night, under lantern light, the surgeon walks through the crew, handing out citrus wedges like holy relics. You hear him mutter, "No excuses now," to nobody in particular. You lean on the railing and look back at the dark shoreline. Firelight glows faintly through the trees. Drums thump in the distance, slow and sleepy. You can smell smoke and sweetness on the wind. And for the first time in a long time, your teeth don't throb. A sailor beside you picks at his shirt and mutters, "Reckon they'll write songs about this someday." You grin. Only if someone survives to sing 'em. You both laugh, and for a moment,
everything feels possible.
By the time the anchor rises the next morning, the hold is stuffed with fresh fruit, stacked crates of limes, citrus syrup in earthenware jugs, sticky bananas wrapped in palm leaves, and at least one fruit no one can name but smells suspiciously like a goat that's been left in the sun. Still, no one complains. You haul a barrel lid into place and hear the satisfying clunk of preservation. It's a sound that promises teeth, strength, and fewer corpses in the coming weeks. As the ship eases away from the shore, the jungle fades into green haze, then into memory. The sea resumes its role, but it's a different voyage now, lighter, sharper, a little brighter. You can feel it in the crew. There's less coughing, less groaning. Men are singing again, even during sail hoist drills. One lad is even shaving. That alone might be the biggest miracle. Breakfast includes a new item, lime grog, a mixture of rum, water, and citrus juice handed out with solemn ceremony and faint amusement. It tastes like a punch to the tongue, but no one cares. You drink it, wince, and keep going. It's the price of survival. There's a phrase tossed around more often now, Ward's Brew. Some claim it's named after the quartermaster, who first tried adding rum to lemon water to make it tolerable. Others say it's just sailor slang for not dying on your feet. Whatever the truth, the brew is here to stay. Historians still argue whether the success of lime grog was due to actual belief in its curative powers or just dumb, delicious luck. Some officers still resist the change, clinging to their vinegar and ale rations with colonial stubbornness. But the crew knows. They've seen the difference. You can see it in the way people stand, walk, breathe. There's even a rumor spreading. A few ships in the East Indies fleet have started boiling citrus peel into syrup and using it to treat wounds. One sailor swears it saved his leg. Another claims it regrew a toe. Likely nonsense, but hope is contagious.
You've also noticed something curious. The captain, once immune to suggestion, now requests his citrus ration before midday. He says it's for alertness, but you've seen the way he grimaces at the memory of past voyages, men groaning, blackening, fading. Even the proud must adapt when their crew starts outliving expectations. The cook starts experimenting. He grates lemon rind into ship's biscuit dough, throws orange peel into stew, and once, in a moment of fevered inspiration, roasts salted pork with pineapple. It tastes like victory. The men begin naming barrels. One's christened Sweet Nell, another the Last Tooth. One is simply called Doctor. You chalk that one up to gallows humor, or maybe reference. Each evening a new ritual takes shape. The lime line. Sailors queue quietly, cups in hand, waiting for their daily ration. There's joking, of course, and the occasional argument about who took 2 helpings, but it feels sacred in the strange, scruffy way things at sea sometimes do. You watch the sunset from the foredeck with a tin cup warm in your hand. A breeze picks up and carries the faint scent of citrus peel and salt. Below deck, someone hums an old shanty out of tune, and others join in. A fly buzzes near your ear. You swat at it lazily and miss. The fly doesn't care.
You hear someone say, "Imagine if this stuff actually keeps us alive." You smile. Imagine if it doesn't. We'll still be the freshest corpses in the Atlantic. More laughter. It's strange how humor finds a way aboard a ship, even one that floated through death a few weeks ago. Now it floats on limes, on hope, on scurvy's slow retreat. The surgeon's assistant stops by your hammock that night.
He's carrying a notebook with greasy corners and dog-eared pages. "Or keeping track now," he says. "Teeth, swelling, energy. Just for the records." "Who's gonna read those?" you ask, grinning. "Hopefully someone with a desk and a vote." You nod. "Tell him I still have all my molars. I'll draw little stars next to your name." You both laugh softly. Sleep comes easier now, with fewer groans from bunkmates and less coughing in the dark. No one dies that night or the next. In the world of long voyages, that's a small revolution. And somewhere in the dark, down in the hold, a single lime rolls off a crate and lands with a soft thunk on the floor. You dream of lemon trees again, only this time you're not reaching for them. They're handing fruit down to you.
A few weeks pass. The sea stretches out in every direction, an endless silk sheet of blue-gray. The crew settles back into routine, but something's shifted. Not just in their health, but in their mood. There's less fighting over rations, more card games. The ship hums not with doom, but with the slow, rhythmic pulse of human resilience. You rise early most days now, before the sun spills over the horizon. The mornings have grown gentler, or perhaps you've just grown used to their chill. The citrus crates are slowly emptying, but no one panics. You're better stocked than most, and there's hope of resupply at the next port. One morning, you find yourself in the galley, watching the cook stir something thick and yellow in a pot. He doesn't look up. Mango chutney or something like it. Might keep the sold pork from walking off the plate. You lean closer. It smells bizarrely wonderful. Sweet, acidic, spicy. He's tossed in cloves, a cinnamon stick, even a bit of orange peel. "Where'd you learn this?" you ask. "Had a friend once, Calcutta lad, swore by this stuff. Said it made boiled rice taste like a festival." You nod. The cook doesn't speak often, so when he does, you listen. Later, during mess, the chutney appears in little wooden scoops. Some of the men eye it suspiciously, others dig in with hardtack. One sailor shouts, "It's got flavor," like it's a curse. He gets clapped on the back and dubbed Admiral of the Mangoes for the rest of the day.
You eat yours slowly. It's the best thing you've tasted in weeks. That evening, as the sun melts into the horizon like a blood orange, you overhear a conversation on the quarterdeck between two of the junior officers. They're talking about James Lind. You pause. The name rings a bell. A naval surgeon from not too long ago. Scottish, if you remember right. He conducted one of the first controlled clinical experiments aboard the HMS Salisbury. 6 pairs of men, all with scurvy. Each pair got different treatments. Only the citrus-fed pair recovered. Historians still argue whether Lind's experiment was the turning point or just a footnote. Some say his findings were buried under a mountain of vinegar and tradition. Others believe the Admiralty simply didn't want to admit that the solution had been so cheap. You wonder what Lind would think of your ship now. Men laughing, teeth intact, skin firm. You'd wager he'd be pleased, or at least relieved. Another officer pipes up, "They say the Dutch were adding lemon juice to grog back in the 1600s. "Maybe," replies the first. "But the English were adding beer to everything back then, even soup." You chuckled quietly. You've tasted that soup. They're not wrong. The sky darkens to ink. A few constellations blink into view. Orion, Cassiopeia, the scattered pearls of the Pleiades. You've been watching the stars more lately.
Not for navigation, just to remind yourself that there's still wonder in the world, even when your feet are splintered and your socks are damp.
Below deck, the carpenter has started carving tiny citrus fruits into the beams, limes, lemons, oranges, like charms against death. One is even grinning. You swear it looks like the first mate. No one corrects you. That night, your dreams are flavored again. You taste lemon drops, candied peel, sweet lime marmalade on warm bread. You wake hungry. The next morning, you're assigned to help inventory the galley stores. It's mostly dull work, counting sacks of salt, weighing flour, poking around in barrels of pickled something. But as you open a crate of lemons, a sweet, sharp scent rises that stops you cold. For a moment, you're back on land, in a garden or a market, somewhere bright. You look down. One lemon has gone soft, browning slightly at the edges. Still salvageable. You pick it up, cradle it like a treasure. It's strange how this humble fruit, this sour, puckering orb, has become the anchor of your voyage. Not the sails, not the map, not even the captain's orders. The lemon. You tuck it into your pocket. For luck. Or for dessert. Or maybe just because it reminds you that the sea, for all its fury, can also be generous.
You're below deck again, but this time it smells less like sweat and rot and more like a faint citrusy tang that lingers on the timbers. Someone's been wiping things down with orange peel, apparently convinced it fends off disease. Maybe it does. At the very least, it makes the place more bearable. You breathe a little deeper. The surgeon's assistant has begun sketching diagrams now of teeth, gums, swollen joints, before and after lime rationing. The pictures are crude, but they tell a story. Fewer sores, stronger limbs, clearer eyes. He started calling them his case studies, as if you're all participants in some grand experiment, which, come to think of it, you are. Lime juice, he tells you one afternoon, might be the most rebellious thing the Navy's done this decade. You raise an eyebrow. Really? More than flogging a lieutenant? He grins. That's not rebellion, that's tradition. Word of your ship's success begins to ripple out. When you dock briefly at a Caribbean outpost for resupply, other sailors come sniffing around. "You the crew with the lime barrels?" one asks, half-whispered, like he's asking about contraband. You nod, and he leans in. "You lot haven't buried a man in 3 weeks." It's true. A quiet miracle. They offer trade, dried fish, new netting, even a small carved idol from the local market. But you hold fast to your citrus stores. They're worth more than gold now, more than gunpowder. Back aboard, the captain finally relents and issues an official notice: 1 ration of lime juice per man per day, to be added to grog or consumed straight if one has the guts. The crew cheers. Some even tear up. It's the first command he's issued in weeks that no one grumbles about.
Historians still argue whether this moment marks the real beginning of standardized naval health protocols, whether it was the tip of the iceberg or just a lucky fluke. Either way, your ship becomes a floating whisper, spoken of in taverns, scribbled into private logs, cited in letters to home. One sailor writes, "We are healthy, hale, and unnervingly cheerful. The cook made lemon pie from hardtack crumbs, and it didn't kill anyone." You know morale is high when men start baking at sea. Speaking of which, there's a new ritual developing. Each week, on Lime Day, the crew selects 1 citrus fruit from the dwindling stores to honor. They name it, polish it,
sometimes carve a face into it. It sits on the mess table like a guest of honor. Last week's lime was named Lady Jane. She received a formal toast and a short ballad before being squeezed into someone's grog. Strange things happen when men are too long at sea. But the mood holds. The deck seems brighter. Even the sails seem to catch wind more easily. Though you know it's just your mind playing tricks. Still, tricks are useful when they lift spirits. One evening, a storm brews low on the horizon. Black clouds, thick and curling like ink and water. The wind shifts. The crew prepares to reef the sails, batten down the hatches. You brace yourself. Everyone does. Then, just before the squall hits, the carpenter nails a carved lime charm above the captain's door. No one says anything, but everyone sees it.
You ride the storm out with a clenched jaw and soaked boots. It's not the worst you've seen, but it rattles the rigging and bruises a few ribs. When morning comes, the sun breaks through like applause. Not a single serious injury. Lime luck, someone says. The nickname sticks. You lie in your hammock that night, rocking gently, citrus tang still clinging faintly to your fingers. You think of scurvy, not as a specter anymore, but a fading memory. Like a fever dream you're finally waking from. And as sleep pulls at your edges, you picture Lind again, back on that other ship, scribbling notes by lantern light. You wonder if he knew, if he hoped that one day, somewhere out here, a crew like yours would live because of what he learned. Maybe he did. Or maybe he just wanted to stop watching men rot from the inside out. Either way, you're grateful.
The days roll on in a rhythm that begins to feel almost peaceful. The ocean remains an enormous heaving thing, of course, unpredictable, untamable, but somehow it's grown less threatening. You've learned its moods, the way it sighs when the wind changes, the particular pitch of the timbers before a squall. Even the gulls seem more familiar now, like nosy neighbors checking in on your floating village. And what a village it is! You've settled into your role in this weird, citrus-loving community. Everyone has. There's the man who can juggle 3 limes in a rolling sea, the cook who now insists on zesting everything, including hard cheese, the bosun who recites Shakespeare to his daily lemon wedge before biting into it like an apple. You're still scraping barnacles from the hull and hauling wet ropes, but now you do it with clearer eyes and steadier legs. The weakness in your knees is gone. Your gums no longer ache when you chew. You started growing fuzz on your cheeks again, thin and scraggly, but hopeful. It's a quiet transformation, this healing. You don't notice it all at once, but one day you pass a mirror shard nailed to a beam and do a double take. Your eyes are brighter. Your skin looks, well, not good exactly, but less corpse-like. There's a rumor going around that another ship nearby is suffering badly. No citrus, barely any vinegar. Men collapsing mid-shift. The kind of scurvy you remember from earlier voyages. One sailor suggests sending a box of limes their way.
Charity? The quartermaster snorts. We're not a hospital barge. But the captain surprises you. He writes a short note, wraps it around a small crate, and has it rowed out to the other ship under a white flag. No fanfare, no bragging, just a handful of fruit and a single sentence. Try this. Historians still debate whether these kinds of small gestures between captains, surgeons, and cooks mattered more than the sweeping naval orders that came years later, whether scurvy was defeated by science or by stubborn men sharing what worked. There's no clear answer, but on your ship, there's no debate. The answer is lemons. Well, technically limes,
but you've learned not to be picky. One morning, the ship's bell rings in a new way. 3 short chimes, followed by a longer one. That's the code for land in sight. Everyone rushes up to the deck, squinting into the mist. And there it is, a smudge of green on the horizon. Palm trees, maybe. Sand. Civilization. Resupply. The excitement is oddly restrained. No cheering, just a low murmur of relief that grows steadily louder as the shoreline sharpens into view. You feel it too. Not euphoria, just a warm loosening in your chest. You might live to see home.
As you dock, you catch the scent of spices on the wind. Nutmeg, cloves, maybe a hint of roasted coffee. The port is busy, dusty, vibrant. Locals hawk fruit from baskets. Sailors from other ships shout across the piers. The air tastes like pepper and sunburn. You're given leave to disembark in shifts. You go ashore with a small group, coins jingling in your pockets and a crumpled shopping list from the cook. Lemons, obviously. Sugar, if you can find it. Something called galanjang, which none of you can pronounce, but which the cook insists will change the grog forever. As you wander the market, a small boy tries to sell you a bundle of limes for half what they're worth. He's grinning like he knows something. You buy them all. You don't haggle. Back at the ship, the hold begins to fill again. Sacks of rice, jugs of water, crates of citrus so fresh they still drip with dew. You help load them, careful not to bruise the precious cargo. The smell alone is enough to lift spirits. Later, as night falls, you sit on a crate of oranges, watching lanterns flicker on the dock. Someone plays a tune on a battered violin. It's mournful, but oddly cheerful. Like the sea itself. Lonely, yes, but always moving forward. The first mate passes by and tosses you a lemon. For your dreams, he says, with a wink. You smile. You're not sure when exactly this ship stopped feeling like a coffin and started feeling like home. But it did. And you know that somewhere out there, on another deck, in another sea, someone else is discovering the same thing. That survival doesn't always come in the form of gunpowder or grit. Sometimes it's a fruit.
It's strange how quickly citrus becomes part of your identity. Other ships begin calling yours the Lemon Boat or His Majesty's Floating Orchard. At first, it's a bit of a joke. Some snickering in dockside taverns, a few lime-themed shanties that are definitely not flattering. But when word spreads that no one's died of scurvy aboard in months, the tune changes. A merchant captain offers to trade a barrel of brandy for one of your juice casks. You don't accept. Not because brandy isn't tempting, but because your crew would riot if the citrus stash ran low. Besides, the grog's already improved. The cook, ever the alchemist, has begun experimenting. Lime and ginger, lemon and mint, orange peel steeped in watered-down rum sweetened with molasses. He claims he's discovered the anti-scurvy mojito, and no one's arguing. Your duties haven't changed. You still swab, lift, scrub, and haul, but now there's a rhythm to things, a comfort in the repetition. Even the salt spray feels different on your skin, less abrasive somehow, or maybe you're just getting used to the sting. Every day, you down your ration, an ounce or two of cloudy lime water in a tin mug, and feel a quiet, weird satisfaction.
It's like brushing your teeth or tying your boots, just something that makes you feel more human. You overhear a conversation between the captain and the ship's surgeon. They're discussing documentation. Turns out your voyage has become a sort of case study. Informal, yes, but important. The Royal Navy has started taking notice. Word has reached an admiralty clerk who thinks citrus could become policy. Imagine that. Sailors living past 40.
You chuckle. You're not even sure you want to live past 40 out here, but it's nice to have the option. Historians still debate who truly deserves the credit for the Navy's citrus revolution. Was it Lind, quietly plugging away in his notebooks? Was it the surgeons who took risks and snuck juice into daily rations before orders came down? Or was it the sailors, the ones who drank it, spread the word, and built the culture? No consensus exists, just a slow accumulation of choices that led to fewer funerals at sea. On calmer nights, the hammock rocks gently beneath you as you drift towards sleep. Sometimes you dream of orchards, lush, sun-drenched, overflowing with fruit. Other times, it's the sea itself, but made of lemonade. Your dreams are sweeter now, less feverish. You wake up one morning and notice something odd. The ship smells different. Less mildew, less man. There's even a floral note you can't place. Some kind of herb the cook hung in the galley to keep spirits lively. Lavender, maybe? Or basil? Either way it works. A sailor near you has taken to humming while he scrubs. Another whistles while tightening rope. You realize you haven't heard anyone cough blood in weeks. No one's limping, no one's swollen. It's a ship full of miracles. Well, and sailors, so maybe not full, but close. You pass the cargo hold and see a midshipman carefully rearranging the citrus stockpile. He's counting them, weighing them, cradling one particularly large orange like it's a baby. He sees you watching. This one's going in my letter home, he says. I'm going to describe it for my mum, down to the last dimple. You nod, understanding. It's not just about nutrition anymore. It's about dignity. Hope. Proof that even in this harsh, salt-riddled world, something bright and sweet can survive. You think back to earlier voyages, how your gums bled, how your legs refused to hold you, how you couldn't think straight by the third week. And now, you're stronger, sharper. You can feel the difference, not just in your body, but in how people treat each other. There's less snapping, less snarling, more patience, even during storms. They say scurvy eats away not just at the flesh, but the soul. And now you understand what they meant. Because what's coming back isn't just your health, it's your humanity. You're watching the horizon again. Not because of storms or enemy ships or even boredom, though there's always a bit of that. You're watching because rumor has it that this stretch of ocean leads to a port famous for something extraordinary. Citrus trees that grow in salt air.
Impossible, says the quartermaster. Salt kills 'em. But the cook insists. Swears he read it in a pamphlet once. Something about hybrid lemons tough enough to withstand sea breezes and bad poetry. I'm telling you, he says, polishing a ladle, this island grows the kind of lemons that could cure sadness. You don't care if the trees exist. The promise is enough to keep your gaze fixed forward. The ship creaks along, rocking gently beneath a low sun. It's been weeks since the last proper storm, and spirits are oddly high. Someone has tied dried orange peels to the rigging, claiming it wards off rats. Another sailor is carving citrus shapes into the mast. An orange here, a lime there, a smiling lemon with a monocle. You pass these things every day, and they begin to feel like saints. The real miracle, though, is the routine. Wake up, swab, eat, drink your juice, haul ropes, nap if you're lucky, maybe hum a bit while you fold canvas, and then do it all again. But somehow now there's a quiet joy in it, a softness that wasn't there before. It helps that you're no longer afraid you'll drop dead during a storm, or that your teeth will fall out mid-bite, or that you'll be buried at sea with a spoon for a tombstone.
Historians still argue whether these long stretches of calm, citrus-fueled sailing were more about health or morale. Was it the lack of disease, or the way the crew began to see each other as more than walking corpses? They don't have an answer. And out here, you don't need one. At dinner, someone reads aloud from a tattered book of sea poems. The verses are overly romantic, the rhymes lazy, but no one cares. It's something to listen to besides the groan of the hull and the slap of waves. You sip warm grog with a wedge of lime floating in it. The cook calls it cabin punch. It's terrible, but it's also comforting. The ship's cat has taken to sleeping in the lemon crate. It smells better than the rat-infested galley, apparently. No one moves her. She's become a mascot of sorts. You're given a new task, tending to the citrus shelf. Basically, you rotate the fruit, toss the moldy ones, and fan them with a bit of cloth to keep air flowing. You take it seriously, because now those fruits are treasure, life preservers in rind form. One evening, while slicing a lemon, you nick your thumb. Not deep, but enough to sting. The ship's surgeon takes a look and smiles. He says, "That's the healthiest cut I've seen in months. Your blood's red again."
You hadn't noticed, but he's right. Your blood is no longer the dark, sluggish ooze it was during your sickest days. It's vibrant, normal, alive. You bandage it and go back to work, watching the sun dip low over the bow. The sky turns the color of burnt orange and soft grapefruit. You wonder if the sea is in on the joke. That night, in your hammock, you can't sleep. Not because of pain or fear or noise, because you're too content. Which, let's be honest, is deeply suspicious. You stare up at the ceiling, tracing knots in the wood with your eyes, thinking about how odd it is that salvation came not from prayers or punishments or strict rationing, but from something you could pluck off a tree. Something that tastes a little too sour and makes your eyes twitch, but also makes your bones sing.
Morning fog rolls in like a lazy ghost, curling around the masts and muffling the usual morning racket. But you're already up, crouched by the citrus shelf with a small knife and a patch of clean cloth, checking for soft spots and mold bloom. Today's casualty, one sad, sunken orange, its peel puckered like an old boot. You give it a moment of silence before tossing it overboard, watching it bob in the wake like a tiny, vitamin-rich lifeboat. The surgeon joins you, sipping tea that smells suspiciously like boiled lemon peels and clove. He says, "I hear there's a naval order in draft form. Mandatory citrus rations daily." You blink. For all ships? He nods. All of them. It doesn't sound real. It sounds like fantasy. Like dry socks or a mutiny-free voyage. Still, you smile. There's an argument later on between two sailors. One claims it was James Linn's idea. The other insists it was the Portuguese long before him. They're both partly right and mostly wrong, which is the usual flavor of truth aboard a ship. Historians still debate that very thing.
Did Lynn's 1747 experiment, 6 patients, 6 treatments, really prove the point? Or had others already done it better earlier and been ignored? Your money is on the ignored ones. The ship finally makes port after months at sea. It's a small colonial settlement with dusty streets and too many goats, but the locals bring baskets of citrus as a welcome gift. Lemons, oranges, something that might be a hybrid grapefruit. You help unload, barely resisting the urge to hoard them under your bunk like treasure. The captain sends a letter home, commending his fruit-forward approach to naval health. The phrase makes you snort into your citrus stew. In town, you and a few others visit a tavern. The beer is warm, the food questionable, but there's a punch made with actual fresh lime, honey, and something that might be brandy. It's delicious. Too delicious. You wake up the next morning under a table, your boots missing, with a lemon stuffed in your pocket like a consolation prize. Back on the ship, preparations begin for the return voyage. New crates of fruit are loaded, this time with little cloth hammocks to keep them from bruising. You feel like you're tucking in infants. The surgeon catches you admiring the lemons and says, "We've gone from sea dogs to orchard keepers." You grin. Better than coffin fellers. He raises his mug in a mock toast to zesty survival. The next days are quiet, familiar. The kind of quiet that makes you wonder whether you're bored or just finally at peace. The sun is hot, the sails snap lazily, and your duties pass like a song stuck on repeat. Grog still gets served, but now it's fortified with citrus juice and a bit of nutmeg. Sailors drink it with pinkies out as a joke. You join in, naturally. It hits you sometime during a rope coiling session. You've gone weeks without seeing a single case of scurvy. No bleeding gums, no purple spots, no ghostly moaning from the sick bay. It's so normal now that it's weird. You remember when sickness was just part of the background, as natural as the tide. Now, health feels revolutionary. One of the younger deckhands asks you if this is what sailing used to be like before scurvy. You laugh and tell him there was no before, only during, until now. He nods solemnly, like he's just glimpsed a hidden chapter of some holy book. Then he asks if he can have your citrus shift next week. You say no, obviously.
You're halfway through slicing limes when the first rumors arrive. Spain's gone citrus, someone says over breakfast, stabbing at a hard biscuit. They're pickling lemons in salt water, shipping them by the barrel. Later, a letter passed between captains confirms it. And more, the Dutch are experimenting with citrus groves in their colonies. The French, lemon tonics. The Portuguese, already smug. They say they started this centuries ago. You don't mind that one-upsmanship. Let them argue over first. You're just glad someone is listening. Historians still squabble over which empire deserves credit for the great citrus turn. Some say Lind was the spark. Others argue he was just a guy with access to paper and patience. But out here, truth is less about origin stories and more about results. Fewer corpses, for one. You spend the next few days learning the fine art of lemon preservation. The cook teaches you to candy the peels, simmering them in sugar water until they glisten like stained glass. You nibble one and immediately regret it. It's like chewing sweet gravel. But the others seem impressed. Later, a crate of limes ferments in the heat, and the entire ship smells like a failed cocktail party. The bosun, irritated, makes everyone carry extra sacks of salt below deck just to keep the air respectable. The cat refuses to leave the citrus shelf now. She sleeps between grapefruit halves like a fruit-scented empress.
The surgeon, meanwhile, has begun writing a paper. You're not sure who it's for. Probably the Admiralty, possibly the world. He paces the deck, muttering things like ascorbic acid and naval resilience and prevention versus treatment. You don't interrupt.
He does show you one line. Let citrus be as standard as sails. You give him a thumbs up. He sighs, unsure if you're mocking him. You're not. Not this time. A storm rolls in 2 nights later. Nothing major, just a tantrum from the sky. Winds, some spray, enough noise to ruin sleep, but not morale. You lash down crates, tie off lines, secure the hammock of oranges like it's a baby in a cradle. It's strange being calm during a storm. You realize you're not bracing for death, just getting through it. And in the eye of it all, you slice an orange. Not because you have to, because it feels right. The crew starts trading citrus like currency now. A wedge of lime for an extra biscuit. A candied peel for clean socks. Someone tries to auction off a grapefruit with a smiley face carved into it. Good for morale, they claim. The captain allows it. Says it keeps the men zesty. He's probably been practicing that joke for days. Port comes again. This time a larger city, a naval hub. You see crates upon crates of lemons stacked neatly on the docks, like golden bricks. A sea of sailors in other uniforms, some sick, some pale, some scowling at the sight of your glowing skin and shipper crew.
You smirk. The tables have turned. The surgeon offers to tour the hospital and share his findings. He returns late, shaken. Too many still dying, he says. They won't listen. But some do. You overhear a French doctor asking about citrus storage, a merchant requesting seeds, an officer requesting, quite seriously, a recipe for lime punch that won't offend His Majesty's stomach. Progress doesn't arrive in parades. It arrives in whispers. That night, you sleep with a slice of dried lemon tucked into your pocket. A strange new superstition, or maybe just a reminder. This life, this health, isn't guaranteed. It's earned, preserved, pickled in brine and tucked under deck and shared like gossip until it sticks.
You wake to the sound of arguing again. This time, it's not about rum rations or laundry theft or whose turn it is to swab a latrine. It's about oranges. More specifically, who gets the last 2 from the crate. I saw them first, one sailor insists, holding a paring knife like a duelist. You sniffed 'em, not claimed 'em, says the other, arms crossed. You don't sniff unless you intend, someone mutters from a hammock. You sigh, roll over, and mutter into the wood. We've gone full citrus cult. By lunchtime, the captain mediates with the grace of Solomon. He cuts both oranges in half and declares, "There, now you're brothers in bitterness." There's a slow clap. Everyone moves on. It's funny, in a quiet way, how quickly fruit has become sacred. It used to be a rare treat, exotic, soft, perishable. Now it's medicine, morale, a unit of social currency. You've seen friendships tested over lime wedges, favors traded for a single sliver of candied peel. And you get it, really. This isn't just about taste anymore. It's about proof that survival isn't just blind luck, that something small and sour can change your fate. Historians still wonder whether the psychological impact of citrus matched its physical effects. Did sailors recover faster because they believed the fruit worked? Or did it truly rebuild their tissues cell by cell?
The surgeon says both. He's now keeping a chart that tracks morale alongside vitamin intake. It's suspiciously shaped like a smiley face graph. You suspect he's padding the data just to cheer himself up. You're assigned to help repair the ship's rigging, which has frayed from salt, time, and at least 2 clumsy deckhands.
While up the mast, you can see the coastline falling away behind you, little citrus groves shrinking into green freckles on the hills. And just like that, you're bound back out to sea. The new crates are heavier this time. Someone over-ordered lemons, and now they roll around in the hold like golden cannonballs. The cook's furious. "No one needs this many," he says, peeling the 5th one of the day with theatrical aggression. He's wrong. You do. You eat lemons now like candy, sliced thin, dipped in sugar, wedged into hot grog, even grilled ones, thanks to an overzealous sailor with a fire tin and too much free time. The cat won't touch them, of course. She's above all that. She now sleeps in the officers' quarters, curled in a canvas hammock like she owns the place. The crew's been inventing games too. Peel poker is the current favorite. The rules are unclear, but someone always ends up with sticky fingers and a smug grin. You suspect cheating? Everyone does.
Meanwhile, the ship runs smoother. Fewer complaints, no more sick-bay groans. Even the usual melancholy hum that clings to long voyages seems quieter. You realize that, for the first time, this feels like a routine you could keep. A job, not a punishment. That night, the captain joins dinner. He makes a speech. Nothing fancy, just a toast to citrus and the absurd fact that something so simple can keep us alive. You all raise mugs. It's not the best drink, but it's not the worst either. And the gesture matters more. Later, as the stars come out and the sea whispers soft threats beneath the hull, you peel an orange slowly, letting the scent rise like a quiet hymn. The rind's still warm from the day's sun. You eat a wedge and think, this is what progress tastes like.
It starts with a sneeze. Not yours, thankfully, but a sneeze nonetheless, sharp and unwelcome, echoing across the lower deck like a cracked whip. You freeze mid-step. A few heads turn. One sailor mutters something about the lemon curse. False alarm, just dust. Still, it spokes everyone. You've gone weeks without a real illness. No scurvy, no fever, no cough, but the memory of it all still lingers like mildew. The way gums used to bleed for no reason, the purple blotches, the whispery wheezing at night. You go to check the fruit stores, just in case. Some of the older lemons have started to soften. The oranges are still bright, but the limes getting spotty. You make a note to rotate the crates and maybe bury the really squishy ones. You can't go back, not now. The cook's already on it. He's boiling what he calls citrus stew. It smells like betrayal, but it keeps well and everyone pretends to like it. The surgeon has taken to giving short morning lectures on the benefits of citrus. Today's topic, vitamin C and the repair of tissues. Someone asks if it helps with heartbreak. He pretends not to hear.
Historians still argue when sailors really believed in citrus, when it passed from superstition to strategy. For you, it's somewhere in this fuzzy stretch of time, where sickness is no longer guaranteed and your hands no longer tremble when you grip the ropes. But it's not all peace and peels. There's a theft. One night, a sailor is caught sneaking into the fruit locker. Claims he just wanted to smell the lemons. You believe him. The others want blood. A trial is held. The accused gives an impassioned speech about the smell of zest reminding him of home. You recommend community service, zest cleaning the latrines. The captain agrees. Justice with a twist of lime. After that, the citrus becomes even more precious. You devise a rotation system. Everyone gets a set amount per week. The cook keeps an inventory book locked in a wooden box. The surgeon starts stamping sailors' knuckles after they receive their daily ration, like it's a concert entry. Morale remains odd. Not bad, just strange. People are healthy, yes, but they're also weirdly focused on fruit. One sailor starts carving smiley faces into his oranges before eating them. Another begins composing haikus about limes. The cat? She's learned to sit beside whoever's holding a grapefruit, eyes unblinking. You've stopped questioning it. The days grow warmer. You pass through a stretch of ocean so flat and blue, it feels painted. The sails barely flutter. There's no wind, no waves, just floating.
You eat slices of citrus to pass the time. Watch the way the light dances through the translucent flesh. Wonder how something so small could have caused or prevented so much death. And that's the thing. It's working. You haven't buried anyone in months. The sick bay is used for extra storage now, mostly leavens. The surgeon jokes it's the most fragrant morgue in the world. You sit on deck one night, sipping hot citrus grog, listening to the creak of ropes and soft mutter of dreams around you. You think, this is what safety smells like zest and salt and faintly bitter hope.
It happens during a supply stop at a small, sun-baked port, somewhere too far from maps and too near to trouble. The locals greet you with a mixture of curiosity and caution. Sailors aren't rare here, but healthy sailors, that's new. You notice it quickly. The other ships docked nearby have pale, weary crews. Hollow-eyed men limp down the gangplanks. Some can barely hold their satchels. There's a doctor near the docks. He's surrounded by the sick, shaking his head as he checks swollen gums, mottled skin, bruises that spread like ink stains. Your crew? Glowing. Literally. They're tanned, upright, trading jokes and slices of citrus with the swagger of men who know they've cheated something ancient. It doesn't go unnoticed. Within hours, someone from a Dutch merchant vessel comes knocking. "What's your secret?" he asks, voice hoarse. You don't hesitate. You show him the fruit. He laughs. Then he sees your crates and stops laughing. He says, "All that? Just for this?" You nod. Offer him a lemon. He sniffs it like it might explode.
Historians still debate where the first official cross-ship exchange occurred. Some say it was a French frigate near Barbados. Others insist it was a Portuguese scout in the East Indies. But you remember this moment. One sailor handing another a simple fruit and changing the story. Soon you're swarmed. Captains arrive, doctors, quartermasters. They peer into your holds. Some take notes. Others try to bribe the cook for a candied peel recipe. The surgeon gives a short, impromptu lecture on preventative naval health strategies, standing on a barrel like a citrus prophet. The ports doctor begs for a few crates. The captain agrees. You help load them, and for once, it feels like smuggling hope. Back aboard, the crew watches the exchange with pride. One sailor toasts the moment where the grapefruit slice balanced on a spoon. It wobbles, falls, everyone cheers anyway. That night, around the lantern glow, you and a few mates share citrus stories. How you each discover your favorite fruit, the best way to zest an orange in rough seas, how to swuggle lemon peel into tea undetected. One sailor says he used to hate fruit. Now, he says, holding up a lime, "I'd trade my left boot for a tart one." You're not sure if he means the lime or a burson. You don't ask. The ship sets sail again in the morning, lightened of cargo but heavier with purpose. The captain calls it a noble burden, then immediately trips over a stray orange that someone dropped mid-toast. You start noticing things. Other ships change course to sail beside you, just for a while, just long enough to observe your routines. Some send letters across by rope or message bottle. One asks plainly, "How do you store them?" You reply, "With care and hope."
and a lot of salt. The reply comes hours later, "We'll try." It feels like a movement. Not a revolution, too quiet for that. More like a ripple. You realize you're part of something now. Bigger than your ship, bigger than your voyage, something that might outlive you. It starts with citrus, but it's not about citrus. It's about not dying. About choosing something better and insisting on it, even when it rolls around in the hold and squashes your socks. You're peeling an orange when the lookout cries, "Ship on the horizon." It's not unusual. This is a well-traveled stretch of sea. But something about the way the lookout says it makes your fingers freeze, half-zested. The other ship's sails are ragged, its motion sluggish, listing slightly as though reluctant to move at all. As it draws closer, you see figures on deck, leaning heavily against the rails like exhausted shadows. The captain grabs his spyglass. "They're not well," he mutters, more to himself than to anyone else. You feel it before he says it. The weight of recognition. The same gaunt faces. The same desperation you used to wear like a second uniform. By noon, the ships are side by side, tethered with ropes, and silent stares. A boarding party goes over. You volunteer. The moment you step onto their deck, the difference is like stepping back in time. There's no laughter, no banter, just coughs and sunken eyes. The smell, old bread, brine, and something unmistakably metallic clings to the boards. They're a British trade vessel en route from the Caribbean. Their surgeon approaches, eyes red-rimmed, voice brittle. "We lost 3 this week. More will follow. Do you have anything?" You hand him a lemon. No speech, no sermon. Just fruit. He takes it like a relic. Historians still question whether sailors truly understood what cured scurvy, or if it was just blind faith in fruit. But here, now, watching this man cradle a lemon like it's gold, you know belief has power. You explain your system. Daily rations, zest in meals, citrus grog at night. You give them your charts, your jokes, even your best haiku about oranges. Round and bright you sit, mocking death from wooden bowl, sour sun in my palm. The exchange lasts hours. By evening, their cook is grumbling about how to boil limes without boiling all the taste out. A good sign. Back aboard your ship, the mood is quiet, reflective. The surgeon logs the day's events under citrus diplomacy. He adds a doodle of a lemon shaking hands with a skull. Later, the other ship signals thanks with a flag sewn from a yellow tablecloth. It flutters clumsily in the wind, but gets the point across. The cat watches it like it's prey. She's unimpressed. The next few days you sail on, but with a new feeling. A sense of purpose that's more than just staying alive. You've helped others. You've spread knowledge. You've passed the lemon forward. One night, you spot a shooting star. A sailor next to you whispers, "Wish for more oranges." You wish for something softer. May no one ever die of something preventable again. It's not as catchy, but it sticks with you. The weather shifts. It begins with a steady breeze, cool, welcome, and then escalates into something more theatrical. Clouds roll in like overworked stagehands, and the sea turns a deep theatrical gray, its mood matching the sky.
You reef the sails, secure the barrels, stow the citrus, carefully packed in sawdust-lined crates as if they're crown jewels, because to you, they kinda are. The rain arrives in slabs. Not drops, slabs. Like sheets being dropped from the sky by a lazy god with poor aim. One sailor ties a lemon to his belt for luck. Another carves, "In peel we trust," into the mast with a spoon. The cook insists that eating citrus during a storm will anchor the stomach. No one asks what that means, but everyone eats anyway. During the storm's peak, there's shouting, slipping, prayers shouted into the wind. But you hold tight to the rigging and think about how absurd it is that you've survived sickness, starvation, and near mutiny, only to possibly get flattened by a rogue wave while clutching a lime. You laugh. The wind takes the sound. Historians still debate whether storms had any real influence on the spread of citrus lore, whether the fear of nature made people more open to new remedies, new ideas. You think fear sharpens the tongue and softens the ego. A sailor with shaking knees is far more willing to eat a sour fruit than one full of bravado. The storm passes, as it always does.
In the stillness that follows, the world feels new again. Damp, yes, but new. You open a crate to check the fruit, all intact. One orange is slightly bruised, but you eat it anyway. Tastes like defiance. Later that day, the sun reappears like a bashful guest at a party it nearly ruined. Sails dry, clothes steam. Conversations resume, though voices are softer now. Storm soft. The cat reappears annoyed. She'd somehow dry. Repairs begin, ropes retied, the mast gets a citrus polish. Someone jokes it'll repel wood rot and ghosts. No one disagrees. That evening, around a warm lantern and a soggy map, the surgeon reads aloud from his notes. He's begun writing a manual of citrus use at sea. It's more poem than medical text, but it includes solid advice. Should symptoms arise, bleeding gums, fatigue, melancholia, reach first for the orange, then for your crewmates.
You nod. It feels right. One sailor offers a toast, holding his mug high. To storms past, lemons spared, and teeth still in our heads. Cheers erupt. The clink of cups, the squish of orange segments being shared like secrets. You sit back, letting it wash over you. You've weathered worse, and come out the other side, with fruit intact. That's something. You wake before dawn to a strange sound. Not gulls, not waves, not the creak of the ship, but a rhythmic thunk, thunk, thunk. You follow it below deck, ducking under low beams until you reach the galley. There, by lamplight, the cook is meticulously juicing lemons, one by one. No hurry, no audience, just a quiet devotion, like a priest performing a citrus mass. He glances up. "Morning juice," he mutters, "for the bones." You nod, though your bones feel fine. You drink a cup anyway. Sharp, bright, alive, like bottled sunlight. Later that day, you dock in a colonial outpost, half supply station, half rumor factory. The place is buzzing. Whispers of ships surviving long voyages without a single scurvy death. Wild talk about sailors arriving with all their teeth. A miracle, some say. Sorcery, say others. Your crew walks into the port like citrus royalty. Shirts clean, steps steady, hands calloused but confident. A child points at your surgeon and shouts, "That's the lemon man!" You don't correct her. Merchants flock to your ship. They want to buy your fruit.
You trade a crate of oranges for a bolt of bright silk and a hand-carved flute shaped like a goose. Priorities.
When older trader offers a silver coin for a single lime. I heard they bring dreams, he says. You pocket the coin. You give him 2 limes. A local official approaches your captain. Word is your ship's a floating infirmary, a good one. Any truth to that? The captain, ever modest, gestures to the surgeon. He just likes fruit. Historians still argue how early citrus medicine intersected with colonial politics. Did empires encourage it, suppress it, profit from it? Probably yes to all 3. But for now, all that matters is that your presence, your oddly healthy crew, is reshaping expectations. Other ships take notice. A French brig shadows you for 3 days, then casually sidles up and asks to borrow your citrus regimen. You share it with annotated doodles. One depicts a sailor dancing with an orange. The Frenchman adds a beret. Evenings turn luxurious. Instead of hardtack and despair, it's lime broth, orange glazed saltfish, and lemon rind tea. The cook grows cocky, starts slicing fruit into delicate wedges, arranging them in spirals. One sailor calls it gallant cuisine. Another mutters, "Just give me the pulp."
The cat, naturally, only licks the peels. She's a minimalist. One night, while charting stars, you realize you haven't seen a case of scurvy in weeks. No bleeding gums, no leg cramps, no scurvy mood, that weird melancholia sailors get when their bodies betray them. It's working. You sleep easier, the ship feels different, less like a coffin, more like a home. A citrus-scented, salt-washed, wildly impractical home, but still. You hang a string of dried orange peels above your hammock, not for luck, for scent. And maybe a little bit for...
You're sipping lemon tea on deck when the captain calls for an anchor drop. It's an uncharted island, barely more than a smear of green on the horizon. But something about its shape intrigues him. He says it looks like a sleeping man's face. You squint. It looks more like a squashed mango. But either way, you're landing. The crew rows ashore with cautious excitement. It's not every day you get to stretch your legs where no boots have tread before. Or so you hope. The cat rides in the bow like she owns the ocean. Once ashore, the island turns out to be lush, fragrant, and deeply uninterested in your presence. Birds shriek at your intrusion. Bugs swarm like tiny, irate tax collectors. The trees, though, are something else. Lemon trees. Wild ones. The surgeon actually yells. You collect samples, some whole fruit, some blossoms, a handful of leaves. The cook tries to graft one of the smaller branches into a barrel of wet biscuits. He says, just in case it grows on the way. Everyone ignores this. You hike inland, sweating, swatting, but mostly marveling. There's a natural spring, cool and clear. You fill your canteens. You drink deeply. It tastes like stone and sky.
And just when you think the day can't get better, someone spots a lime grove. Not cultivated, not ordered, just growing in anarchic splendor as if the island itself wanted to join your mission. Historians still puzzle over the origins of wild citrus in remote islands. Were the seeds carried by birds, storms, pirates with a fondness for lemonade? No one knows. But here you are, picking fruit under trees no one else has named. You name the biggest one Captain Zestbeard. Captain pretends not to hear. Before leaving, you bury a small tin box at the base of a lemon tree. Inside, a note.
a drawing of your ship, and half a piece of dried orange rind, a time capsule, or an offering.
Back on the ship, spirits are high. You've added to your stores, your map, and your legend. You sail off, the island shrinking behind you, already fading into sea haze. That night, over a warm supper of citrus stew, someone starts calling you the Lemon Whisperer. It sticks. The cat eyes your stew. You pretend not to see. You dream of that island, the sleeping face, the groves, the quiet. You wake wondering if it was real. But the fruit in the hold says yes.
A few weeks later, the ship pulls into a major port city, one of those teeming, sweaty trade hubs where everyone's in a hurry but no one seems to get anywhere. The docks are loud. Crates slam, sailors curse, seagulls scream like they're owed money. Your crew blends in, more or less, except for one thing. You smell delicious. Citrus clings to your skin, your clothes, even your hair. People take notice. A merchant approaches, twitchy and wide-eyed. "You're the ship with the limes?" You raise an eyebrow. "And the lemons?" He gasps like you just confessed to sorcery. Within the hour, you're surrounded. Apothecaries, cooks, street performers, even a local midwife. They all want fruit. You trade sparingly, not for gold, but for stories. A carpenter tells you how they used orange oil to treat shipworms. A woman offers a pouch of powdered ginger and a tale about curing hiccups by yelling at a goat. You gave her a lemon. Seemed fair.
Historians still argue whether citrus was more prized for its medical value or its culinary charm. Here, it's both. A local chef invites you to taste his drunken orange pudding. You accept, then immediately wish you hadn't. It tastes like revenge and raw brandy. You praise the texture. The governor's aide hears about the fruit man of Dock 7 and sends a polite summons. You expect a polite conversation. You are wrong. You walk into a council chamber where 6 men argue over tariffs, shipping lanes, and the citrus problem. Turns out, citrus has become a status symbol. A wedge in a drink means wealth. A candied peel means power. But the supply? Woefully unpredictable. You offer no solutions, just a crate of oranges and a quiet suggestion. Plant groves. Grow your own. Let the fruit return. They nod. They won't listen, but you tried. Later, in a shaded courtyard, an old man in silk robes presses something into your palm. It's a seed. "From my grandmother's lemon tree," he says. "She used to say the scent could ward off sadness."
You tuck the seed into your pouch, next to the turtle carving, and a bit of parchment scribbled with a poem someone shouted at you from a balcony. Your pockets are getting weird. That night, as your ship pulls away, you see lanterns flicker along the dock. A few children wave. Someone tosses a lime into the sea like a farewell coin. The cat watches the splash, uninterested. You head below deck, peel an orange, and feel the weight of the city slip from your shoulders. You're not just passing through history now. You're shaping it.
It starts with a letter, delivered by a courier in a ridiculous feathered hat, sealed with wax and more ceremony than necessary. You break the seal with sticky fingers, half an orange in your other hand, and read it aloud to the cat, who does not care. You've been invited to speak at a university. It's a small coastal academy, best known for once housing a philosopher who accidentally set his beard on fire while boiling nettles. But they want you to talk about scurvy,
about citrus, about survival.
You stare at the letter for a while, then at the sea, then back at the letter. You accept. When you arrive, the lecture hall is smaller than you expected and smells faintly of mold and overcooked lentils. The audience is a strange mix. Young students with ink-stained fingers, older sailors pretending they're just there for the free tea, and one woman with a parrot that says, "Lime thief," every 5 minutes. You begin. You speak not as a scholar, but as a sailor, as someone who's seen teeth fall out and spirits rise, as someone who once bartered a lemon for a poem and doesn't regret it.
You describe the symptoms, the bleeding gums, the bone pain, the creeping fatigue. You describe the cures, citrus, yes, but also kindness, morale, shared stories, songs sung under wet sails. Historians still debate whether the true cure for scurvy was just the fruit or something more holistic, a web of health, hygiene, hope. You lean toward the latter. You tell them about the storm, the island, the cat, the seed in your pocket. You avoid sounding too mystical, but let's be honest, you've seen a lot. It feels like a story worth telling. Afterwards, there's polite applause. One student approaches with a notebook the size of a dinner plate. "Can I quote you?" she asks. You shrug. "Just spell my name right."
That evening, over a modest supper of fish and flatbread, the dean gifts you a book, Treatises on Naval Medicine, 1702 to 1760. Inside is a pressed lemon blossom and a note. Thank you for reminding us that healing doesn't always come in bottles. You sleep that night in a guest room that creaks like it's telling secrets. Rain taps the window. The cat snores beside you. In the morning, you leave a lemon on the pillow. A thank you, a reminder, a seed of its own kind.
You're halfway back to the ship when you spot him. A boy sitting on the edge of the quay, swinging his legs, holding what looks suspiciously like one of your limes. You approach, curious. He sees you and grins. "You're the lemon man." You nod. You've been called worse. He lifts the lime. "Traded this for my lunch bread. Worth it." You sit beside him. The harbor stretches out in front of you, all sails and masts and the distant squawk of seagulls playing King of the Hill on a cannon. The boy tells you he's an apprentice, swabs floors, carries messages, occasionally gets yelled at for things he didn't do. Typical. But he heard the lecture, snuck in the back, under a coat rack. You said oranges help people stay alive? Is that true?
You nod again, slower this time. Not just oranges, but yeah, helps. He looks at the lime, turns it in his hands. Could I grow one? Sure, you say. Might take a while. He shrugs. I got time. You give him a few tips. Sunlight, soil, don't overwater. He listens like it's a treasure map. Historians still argue whether the real legacy of early scurvy prevention was medical progress or agricultural diffusion. Citrus trees ending up in strange gardens, windowsills, and alleyways far from their native roots. You're beginning to see that the answer might be both. Back at the ship, the crew is preparing to sail. You smell salt and tar and something vaguely lemony. The cook is making marmalade again. The captain hands you a parcel. "From the dean," he says, deadpan. Inside is a tiny glass vial labeled Citrus Elixir, Experimental. A note reads, "Not for consumption. Or maybe do, but only if desperate.
You stow it in your trunk, alongside the turtle carving, the seed, and the mysterious poem parchment. Your growing archive of peculiar objects. The wind is fair. The sails snap. The cat watches a gull with murderous patience. You stand at the bow, thinking not about where you're going, but where your limes are going. Into gardens, kitchens, pockets, stories. You didn't set out to change the world, but it's happening anyway.
Weeks blur by at sea. The days roll out like parchment. Endless blue, creaking ropes, the occasional flying fish with a poor sense of direction. You get good at doing nothing while appearing busy, a skill every sailor masters eventually. But something is different. The crew is healthier. Their skin has color. Their gums don't bleed. The cook no longer starts breakfast with a funeral dirge. There's laughter, banter. Someone starts whittling little fruit figurines and leaves them in unexpected places. A lemon duck on your pillow, an orange knight on the capstan. The cat now patrols the galley like a citrus inspector, sniffing every crate. One morning, the surgeon pulls you aside. He's holding a notebook. The pages are full of notes. Your notes, his notes, scribbles, sketches of inflamed gums, and, oddly, one decent drawing of a pineapple. He says, we should write it down. All of it. Before someone else does and gets it wrong. You sit with him on deck and begin. The wind ruffles the pages, but your hand is steady. You start with the basics, what scurvy is, what it does, how it creeps in. Then you move to the cures, the observations, the island with the sleeping face cliffs, the lemon stew. You include everything, even the cat. Historians still question how much the average sailor truly understood about nutrition before the age of scientific medicine. Some say they knew enough. Others argue it was all superstition and luck. Your journal won't settle the debate, but it will add a voice, a vivid, sticky-fingered, orange-scented voice. That night, under a velvet sky, the stars crisp and endless, you reread your work by lantern light. It's not polished, it's not scholarly, but it's real. You fall asleep on the deck with the notebook on your chest. The cat uses it as a pillow. Somewhere in the pages is a sentence you hadn't planned to write. If you give a man a lemon, he'll ask for salt and rum. But if you give him a reason to live, he might plant a grove. You dream of groves, not wild, but tended with paths, benches, stories whispered under blossoms, a place where healing takes root. Your next port is unexpected. A sudden shift in the wind, a squabble among navigators, and a mysterious map you're pretty sure the cat sat on for half a day, and boom, you're docking somewhere unfamiliar. A warm, sleepy island with red clay roads, thick banana groves, and markets that smell like cardamom and curiosity. You're barely ashore when someone spots the citrus crates being unloaded. Within an hour, you're invited to a festival. You try to decline. You fail spectacularly. The celebration is called the Day of Sour Gifts. You don't ask questions. You're draped in garlands, painted with what you're told is medicinal turmeric, not face paint. Given a drink in a coconut shell that tastes like someone steeped fireworks in lemonade. You politely smile as your taste buds try to flee. The mayor greets you personally. She's in her 70s, wears sandals made from old maps, and has a handshake that could uncap a bottle.
"You're the citrus whisperer," she says. You attempt to correct her. She waves you off. She leads you to the edge of the town where a grove of young trees stands. "We only just started planting," she says, "but already fewer of our sailors are falling ill." She credits your trade, your stories, the fact that someone passed through last year and said, "I met a sailor who swore by lemons." That was you. Probably. Maybe. Historians still argue whether citrus adoption spread through official reports or sailor gossip. You know the truth. Gossip travels faster and with better jokes. That night, under lanterns and mosquito nets, you tell stories by the fire about storms and stew and toothaches and cats who prefer sun-dried sardines. The children laugh. The elders nod. One woman quietly places a peeled orange segment on your plate and says, "This one's for the ancestors." The next morning, before you leave, the mayor gives you a cutting from one of their new lemon trees. "Plant this somewhere good," she says. You think of the seed in your pocket. The cutting joins it. You're now carrying a tiny orchard. As you board the ship, a child runs up and tucks a piece of folded cloth into your hand. It's a stitched patch, embroidered with uneven letters. "Fruit saved us." You sew it onto your sleeve, right under your heart. By the time your ship anchors in the capital, word has already arrived ahead of you. You step onto the dock to find a small, anxious crowd. Scholars with clipboards, port officials holding ledgers, one overzealous baker offering you a tart he swears is the most vitamin-rich pastry in the hemisphere. You accept it because, of course, you do. A delegation from the Naval Board whisks you away, past rows of cannon, carriages, and confused street performers. They usher you into a cool stone hall lined with portraits of admirals who look like they've never peeled their own fruit. The board president, a woman with silver hair and zero patience, gets straight to the point. "There are rumors," she says, "that you've found a reliable cure." You glance around. Everyone is watching. Even the painting of Admiral Hargrave seems tense. You clear your throat and begin. You speak simply, clearly. None of these scholars speak they expect. You tell them about the voyages, the groves, the gradual changes in the crew, how sailors once too tired to stand now race up rigging, how infections slowed, how morale bloomed with each slice of orange. You explain how it's not just fruit. It's how it's introduced, normalized, believed in. Historians still argue whether the turning point in the war against scurvy was a single naval decree or the accumulation of 100 tiny decisions made by ordinary people. You know your answer. At the end of the presentation, no one claps. But one man in the back, grizzled, scarred, clearly more sea than land, stands up and says, "You ever seen a man cry over a grapefruit?" You nod. He nods back. That's enough. They offer you a position, consultant, advisor, maybe even a small office with a stained glass window and a desk made of something expensive. You decline. Graciously. You belong to the sea, not paperwork. But you leave them your notebook, the full story, with a note inside. "May this save more lives than I ever could, and may the cat stay off it." As you return to your ship, the baker intercepts you with another tart. "Added ginger," he says, "for circulation." You thank him. You've started something, and you can feel it, a ripple that might become a wave. As you sail out, the capital skyline shrinks behind you.
The cat naps in the sun. The cutting in your pouch is still green. You're not done yet. Not even close.
Your next stop is unplanned again. Storms toss your course like dice. You lose 2 sails and 1 barrel of marmalade, a tragic day, but make it safely to a small port in West Africa. A Portuguese fort stands on the edge of the coast, looking bored and sun-bleached. Beyond it, a town alive with color, music, and spices that hit your nose like tiny fireworks. You're greeted by a merchant in embroidered robes who calls you by name. Apparently he met a sailor in Lisbon who met a surgeon in Barbados who knew a parrot that once sat on your shoulder. Your legend now, the citrus whisperer. You're taken to a courtyard filled with trees, not citrus, but something similar. The merchant waves a hand at the groves. Here we chew these leaves, he says. Works wonders for the stomach. You try one. It's bitter, but your headache eases. You spend a week there, trading knowledge. You show them the lemon blossom. They show you a paste from bark that soothes ulcers. You teach them how to make citrus vinegar. They teach you to dance so well, the crew starts calling you Twinkle Toes.
Historians still argue whether early cross-cultural medicine was exploitation or exchange. The truth, like all good stews, is a mix. Yes, power was uneven, but in places like this courtyard, knowledge moved in both directions. You record everything. Names, plants, recipes, even a lullaby sung by an old healer while she stirred a pot of ginger tea with her elbow. Before you leave, she gives you a small cloth bundle, wrapped tight and tied with vine string. Inside, dried leaves, the same ones you chewed. For when fruit is scarce, she says. You tuck it beside the lemon cutting and the orange seed. Your little traveling apothecary. As the ship pulls away, you stand at the stern, watching the coast blur into gold and green. The cat sits beside you, tail flicking thoughtfully, like it too is reflecting. The crew is in good health. Their cheeks are full, their jokes are worse than ever. One of them plays a sea shanty on a flute someone swore was cursed. Jury's still out. The sails swell with wind. You're chasing the sun again. And somewhere in your trunk, among the maps and notes and crumbs of candy ginger, is a single line scribbled hastily during a sleepless night. Cures are not just swallowed, they're shared. You smile. You've got a lot left to share.
The final stretch of the voyage begins with a surprise. As you steer into familiar waters, a chilly coastline you know like the back of your lemon-stained hand, you spot something strange on the horizon. A banner, bright yellow, fluttering from a small dockside tavern. You squint. It reads, "Citrus Night. First round free if you can spell scurvy." You laugh so hard you nearly fall overboard. Turns out, during your absence, your journal, copied and passed along by your surgeon friend, has become something of a sensation. Not in fancy scientific circles, yet, but among sailors, merchants, bakers, and even a troupe of traveling puppeteers who turned it into a surprisingly well-reviewed stage show. At the port, you're welcomed not with fanfare, but with fruit. Baskets of it. Limes shaped into tiny boats, a mandarin orange with a tiny eye patch drawn on. Someone even made a lemon effigy of you. It's not flattering, but it smells amazing.
Inside the tavern, the fire crackles. A new map of known fruit-friendly ports hangs on the wall. Young sailors swap tips, which citrus travels best, how to keep limes from molding, why you should never let the cat nap in the lemon crate. You sip a hot punch spiced with cloves and orange peel. It's like drinking a hug. A burly sailor sits beside you and asks, "You really think a lemon saved your life?" You answer without hesitation, "It wasn't just the lemon, it was the knowing." He nods, "Aye, and the stew helped." Historians still debate whether education or availability mattered more in eradicating scurvy. You think both, and something else, a willingness to listen to odd little stories told in smoky taverns by tired sailors. You spend a night retelling yours.
By the time the hearth coals die down, everyone's smiling, full, sleepy. Before you head upstairs, the tavern keeper stops you. She hands you a folded scrap of parchment, your original recipe for citrus stew. "Found it in an old boot," she says. "Figured you'd want it back." You laugh. It still smells faintly of broth and lemon. You tuck it into your pocket, right over your heart.
You wake to gray skies and a breeze sharp with sea salt. The ship is ready, supplies restocked, sails mended, even the cat seems freshly fluffed. This is your final voyage, for now at least. One last leg before home. But first, a detour. You follow the coastline north, steering toward a small fishing village you haven't visited in years. It's where your first true scurvy case happened, where you held a man's hand while he trembled through fever and cracked lips, where you stirred your very first citrus stew in a dented pot over an open flame, desperate and half certain it wouldn't work. He'd survived. Barely. You anchor just offshore, and a group rows out to meet you. Among them, the man himself, older now, walking with a cane carved from driftwood.
"Still breathing," he calls, grinning. "Still got my teeth, too." They invite you ashore. You oblige. You share what you've learned since, how groves have been planted, how navies are changing policy, how bakers are now prescribing lemon turrets for wellness. He listens, nodding. Imagine that. All this from a soup and a stubborn sailor. You walk together past the village well, past the goats who still eye you with suspicion, to the same beach where once you watched the sun rise with fear in your belly. Now it's warmth. He shows you a small grove behind his home, young citrus trees, green and humming with bees. "You started it," he says. You shake your head. "We did." Historians still wonder whether the shift came from top-down commands or bottom-up revolutions. You know better. It came from people like him. Like you. Like every sailor who tucked a lime into his pocket and every cook who diced orange into a broth just in case. Before you leave, he hands you a single, perfect lemon. You don't pocket it. You peel it. You both eat, side by side, laughing. Then you board your ship. The sails catch, the crew hums, the cat curls on the windowsill. The wind is gentle. You're not chasing the cure anymore. You've helped spread it. It's growing, blooming, taking root. And somewhere in your old surgeon's journal, next to a scribbled recipe and a sketch of a parrot who loved candied peel, is a single line you wrote long ago. The sea is wide, but so is hope. You smile. Your work, like citrus in the sun, will keep. And now, as the sails drift farther and the waves quiet beneath your hull, let the ship settle into calm waters. The wind slows to a whisper, brushing past canvas and skin like the soft breath of sleep itself.
The sea stretches around you like a warm blanket, deep blue, endless, gently rocking the world beneath your feet. You sit at the stern, eyes heavy, hands warm from holding the last peel of lemon. You feel it still, its brightness, its life, its quiet promise. Above, stars blink lazily into view. Familiar constellations drift across the sky, telling their own ancient stories in dots and lines. The cat snores, curled like a comma. The crew's laughter fades to murmurs. All is well.
The scent of citrus clings gently to your sleeve, and you think of the groves you've seen, the lives changed by small things, fruit, stories, kindness passed like bread. You've traveled far. You've done enough. So now it's your turn to rest. Let the rhythm of the tide lull you. Let the memory of sunlit markets and steamy ship kitchens and the soft hush of leaves and an orchard soothe the corners of your mind.
You are safe. You are warm. And somewhere, in a dozen ports and 100 hands, your story lives on. Close your eyes. Breathe in the salt and the lemon. Sleep comes softly, like a wave curling to shore. You are home. End of script. Sweet dreams.